There is a peculiar silence in the space between thoughts. A pause, not of absence, but of infinite potential. Like the stillness between waves or the hush before dawn, something lives there. Not merely stillness, but an intelligence ancient and unnameable, whispering secrets we've forgotten how to hear. Every era has its forbidden language, every soul its buried memory. And somewhere in that obscured middle ground between language and silence, between name and essence, there exists a word, not etched in scripture, nor encoded in science, a word older than speech itself, pulsing beneath the surface of awareness like a submerged star. This is not a word you were taught, though it echoes faintly through lullabies, sacred chants, and the buried roots of your earliest dreams. It's the word you've almost remembered in moments of awe, or in the split second just before waking from a vivid dream that didn't feel like a dream at all. It is a vibration more than a vocabulary, a key disguised as breath, a syllable that bridges what is seen with what is real. The ancients, those keepers of time's deeper rhythm, knew this word well. They wrapped it in parables and protected it with metaphors so it could not be defiled by the casual tongue. The Egyptians built stone echoes of it. The Vedic seers translated it into sound currents. The mystics of many traditions painted its shadow across their visions, but rarely dared to speak it outright. Not out of fear, but reverence. Because to know the word was to step out of the known. And stepping out of the known is not a matter of curiosity. It is a sacred risk. Imagine, for a moment, that reality is a hall of mirrors, endlessly reflecting variations of the self you've come to believe in. Every belief, every identity, every role you perform, father, sister, teacher, rebel, is but another mirrored surface. And behind it all, untouched by the performances and masks, lies the original light. This word, forgotten, forbidden, divine, is not a sound you utter with the lips. It is the reflection breaker, the veil splitter, the bridge between layers of dimensionality that most never realize they are standing on. The modern mind, lulled by glowing screens and numbed by noise, no longer listens for words that don't come from voices. We mistake data for truth, sensation for substance. But this word, this living cipher, requires stillness, presence, and something else even rarer: remembrance. Not the remembrance of facts or history, but the remembrance of origin, of what you were before you were taught to be someone. You see, the forgotten word does not unlock dimensions in the way one unlocks a door. It unlocks you. And when you are unlocked, dimensions unfold themselves like petals of a divine rose that's been waiting for the warmth of your awareness to bloom. The irony, of course, is that the word has been hidden not in faraway temples or sacred texts, but in plain sight, in the breath, in the silence between your thoughts, in the quiet presence of a child's gaze, in the timeless moments when grief cracks open your identity and something eternal spills through. It is always there, humming behind the noise of the world, waiting patiently for your inner ear to tune back in. You may wonder, if such a word exists, why is it not known? Why is it forgotten? The answer is as mysterious as it is inevitable. We forgot it because we had to play the game of separation, to wear the mask of ego, to pretend to be something other than infinite consciousness. We had to forget the word, because once remembered, it shatters illusion like glass struck by lightning. And no one who speaks the word, not with lips, but with the frequency of being, can ever return to the slumber of the constructed self. In this exploration, we will walk the spiral staircase inward, closer and closer to this word, not to learn it, but to remember it, to feel its echo within your own body, to sense how it wants to awaken inside you. As we move forward, we'll peel back the layers of story and symbol, concept and culture, until all that remains is silence pregnant with knowing. And perhaps, from that silence, the word will rise, not as a whisper from the outside, but as a roar from within. To understand the potency of a word forgotten, one must first reckon with what it means to forget. Forgetting is not merely a lapse in memory. It is an intentional descent into limitation. We are born knowing, not just facts or feelings, but something far more radiant, essence. And yet, as the walls of language, identity, and cultural inheritance close in, we exchange that essence for structure, knowing for knowing about. This trade is necessary to function in the physical world, but it comes at the cost of something extraordinary: the innate awareness of the multidimensional self. This forgotten word, this primal frequency, exists beyond our alphabet, outside the syntax of language. It is not a combination of letters, but a resonance. It is the original vibration that stirred the waters before creation was named. It is less like a word and more like the memory of fire felt through your bones, or the shape of a star before it is born. And yet, paradoxically, it is a word in the truest sense, a living symbol that contains within itself a seed of awakening. To even approach its meaning, we must understand the architecture of reality not as a static construct, but as a dynamic interplay of perception, intention, and frequency. In essence, reality is less like a machine and more like a song. It responds to rhythm. It bends to tone. It unlocks to vibration. This is why sacred chants, mantras, or invocations across traditions hold so much power, not because of the words themselves, but because of the intention encoded into their sound. The forgotten word is like a master note, one that harmonizes with all others and, when remembered, tunes the soul back into the great cosmic scale. At the center of this mystery is a simple but profound truth. Words shape worlds. In the act of naming, we define. In the act of defining, we limit. And yet, there is a paradox, because certain words do not bind. They liberate. They do not define reality. They open portals to perceive it more fully. The forgotten word is such a word. It is a crack in the linguistic prison, a glyph of sound that doesn't lock you into meaning, but expands it endlessly. There is a reason that all initiatory paths, be they shamanic, esoteric, mystical, or metaphysical, at some point revolve around silence. Because only in silence can the echo of the word begin to emerge. It is not found in textbooks or algorithms. It does not speak to the intellect, but to the soul's inner geometry. The word is alive in you, not as a foreign implant, but as your original script. A dormant symbol etched in your very energy field, awaiting activation. This brings us to a deeper concept, the idea of dimensional thresholds. Dimensions are not places, but states of consciousness, layers of perception nested within one another like concentric circles. We move between them more often than we realize, not by traveling through space, but by shifting the frequency of our awareness. Some call this spiritual awakening, others call it enlightenment. But in truth, it is a remembering of what has always been. The forgotten word acts as a catalyst for this shift, not because it grants access to dimensions, but because it dissolves the illusion that they were ever separate. In speaking, or more accurately, in becoming this word, you dissolve the veil between what you call me and what you call everything. It is the dissolving point between the observer and the observed, the knower and the known. We live under the hypnosis of duality, light and dark, self and other, heaven and earth. But this word exists prior to division. It is not an escape from duality, but a transcendence through it. And because of this, it is feared, not by your true self, but by the false self, the one that thrives on separation, on naming, on controlling. The forgotten word threatens this self not by attacking it, but by revealing it to be unnecessary. As we move forward into deeper symbolic narratives, keep in mind this central idea. The word is not a tool, but a mirror. It does not teach you something new. It reveals something eternal. It is the code behind your thoughts, the geometry beneath your dreams, the unnamed presence you feel during moments of profound stillness. And once remembered, it can never be unremembered. Like a spark that ignites 1,000 suns within, it transforms not only your understanding of reality, but your place within it. To enter the realm of symbols is to speak the language of the soul, because the soul, unlike the mind, does not think in sentences. It dreams, it paints in myth, and breathes in metaphor. If the forgotten word is the key, then these symbolic narratives are the doorways it unlocks, revealing what logic cannot hold, the story behind the story, the dream within the waking life. Let us begin with a simple tale, whispered through time, carried by the wind like an echo waiting for ears ready to hear. There was once a traveler, born into a village where no one could remember the sky. The people lived beneath a great ceiling of fog, so thick and eternal that the idea of sunlight became a heresy. Over generations, they built lives around this grayness, erected monuments to shadow, invented words for different shades of cloud. Yet in their hearts, there was an ache, a yearning without language, a hunger they had no name for. One day, the traveler found an ancient stone hidden beneath the roots of an old tree, inscribed with a single symbol. The moment their fingers touched it, something stirred inside. A flicker of warmth, a memory not of this life, but something older. They did not understand it, but they felt it, as if a song they'd never heard before was singing them from within. This symbol, the forgotten word in visual form, did not tell them what to do. It did something far more powerful. It unmade what they thought they were. It peeled away belief like old bark. It collapsed time, and in its place rose a knowing so vast that the fog began to thin. The traveler returned to the village, changed, but the others, still cloaked in illusion, saw madness. They feared the light that bled through his eyes. They exiled him, not knowing they were casting away the one who held the key to their release. So the traveler walked alone, carrying the word, not on his tongue, but in his being. Wherever he stepped, the fog unraveled, not through effort, but through resonance, not through explanation, but through example. And some who passed him in the mountains or the forests felt something awaken, though they could not say what, as if the wind had whispered a name they hadn't heard since before they were born. This tale, of course, is your tale. You are the traveler, and the word has always been with you, etched not in stone, but in your very breath. In the old mystery schools, this metaphor would take different forms. The word might be depicted as a hidden flame in the chest, which only reveals itself once the false heart, the egoic self, is burned away. In other teachings, it is a bridge woven from strands of gold between the crown of the head and the stars. Elsewhere, it is a serpent coiled at the base of the spine, awakening as it hears its ancient name sung again. And yet, in every symbol, the pattern is the same. The word calls you home, not to a place, but to a state of being where separation collapses. The veil drops. You are no longer the seeker. You are what was sought. There is another story, one you may recognize from dreams or déjà vu. A child, lost in a labyrinth not made of walls, but of mirrors. Each path reflects a different version of themselves, some noble, some fearful, some monstrous, some divine. The child runs, confused, because each reflection claims to be the real one. Until finally, exhausted, the child sits and breathes. And in that breath, in that stillness, they hear it. A single sound so ancient, it feels like home. The mirrors shatter. The labyrinth vanishes. The child does not escape it. They awaken from it. The word is that sound. Not audible, but undeniable. Not spoken, but remembered. Symbols are not just stories. They are blueprints. Blueprints for what reality can become when we remember who we truly are. They allow the forgotten word to rise through our subconscious, to move past the guardians of the rational mind and stir something sacred in the soul. In every tradition, this word takes a shape. The Hebrew mystics call it the ineffable name. The yogis chant Aum, not as a sound alone, but as a vibrational field encompassing all creation. The Sufis whirl to feel its pulse. The Gnostics sought it in the silence behind the demiurge's illusion. It is not a single word, yet it is the word, because it carries the resonance of Source itself. To feel its power is not to become more informed, but to become more alive. The forgotten word unlocks not knowledge, but being. It does not fill you, it clears you, so what is eternal can emerge. And in that emergence, reality no longer appears as flat or fixed. It begins to shimmer. Walls become thresholds. Objects speak. The stars are no longer distant. They are reflections of your inner sky. Dimensions are no longer far off. They are layers within your very breath. You realize it was never about finding the word. It was about becoming quiet enough to let it find you. This tale, of course, is your tale. You are the traveler, and the word has always been with you, etched not in stone, but in your very breath. In the old mystery schools, this metaphor would take different forms. The word might be depicted as a hidden flame in the chest, which only reveals itself once the false heart, the egoic self, is burned away. In other teachings, it is a bridge woven from strands of gold between the crown of the head and the stars. Elsewhere, it is a serpent coiled at the base of the spine, awakening as it hears its ancient name sung again. And yet, in every symbol, the pattern is the same. The word calls you home, not to a place, but to a state of being where separation collapses. The veil drops. You are no longer the seeker. You are what was sought. There is another story, one you may recognize from dreams or déjà vu. A child, lost in a labyrinth not made of walls, but of mirrors. Each path reflects a different version of themselves, some noble, some fearful, some monstrous, some divine. The child runs, confused, because each reflection claims to be the real one, until finally, exhausted, the child sits and breathes. And in that breath, in that stillness, they hear it. A single sound so ancient it feels like home. The mirrors shatter. The labyrinth vanishes. The child does not escape it. They awaken from it. The word is that sound. Not audible, but undeniable. Not spoken, but remembered. Symbols are not just stories. They are blueprints. Blueprints for what reality can become when we remember who we truly are. They allow the forgotten word to rise through our subconscious, to move past the guardians of the rational mind, and stir something sacred in the soul. In every tradition, this word takes a shape. The Hebrew mystics call it the ineffable name. The yogis chant Aum, not as a sound alone, but as a vibrational field encompassing all creation. The Sufis whirl to feel its pulse. The Gnostics sought it in the silence behind the demiurge's illusion. It is not a single word, yet it is the word, because it carries the resonance of Source itself. To feel its power is not to become more informed, but to become more alive. The forgotten word unlocks not knowledge, but being. It does not fill you, it clears you, so what is eternal can emerge. And in that emergence, reality no longer appears as flat or fixed. It begins to shimmer. Walls become thresholds. Objects speak. The stars are no longer distant. They are reflections of your inner sky. Dimensions are no longer far off. They are layers within your very breath. You realize it was never about finding the word. It was about becoming quiet enough to let it find you. To many, mysticism feels like something that lives outside the boundaries of daily life. A whisper in candlelit temples, a distant chant across desert sands, a glimpse caught between waking and sleep. But the beauty of the forgotten word lies precisely in its paradox. It is both cosmic and intimate, transcendent and immediate. It is not only the key to unlocking hidden dimensions. It is also the secret to living deeply within this one. For what use is illumination if it does not illuminate your footsteps? What value has revelation if it cannot be sown into the soil of your existence? The forgotten word, when remembered, does not ask you to abandon your life. It transforms the way you see it. The office cubicle becomes a shrine. The traffic jam becomes a lesson in timelessness. The argument with your partner becomes an opportunity to break through the illusion of separation. This is not poetic fluff. This is the alchemical shift that occurs when inner perception is reattuned to the pulse of what is real. The word is not remembered all at once. Rather, it stirs slowly. It begins as a subtle current running beneath your thoughts, a gentle pressure nudging you to pause before you speak, to listen before you judge, to breathe before you react. Over time, the current deepens. You begin to feel the falseness of certain patterns. Anger that once felt justified now feels like static. The pursuit of validation begins to crack, revealing the hollow echo beneath it. You begin to see how so much of what you do comes not from your true self, but from a self programmed to forget. But with remembrance comes choice. Not the mechanical decision-making of the mind, but the sacred choosing of the soul. You begin to choose presence over distraction, depth over surface, stillness over noise. You do not renounce the world. You recalibrate your participation in it. You recognize the dream, but you don't flee from it. Instead, you learn to lucidly co-create it. In practical terms, this might mean something as simple as waking up in the morning and feeling your breath as a sacred rhythm, not just a biological function, but a divine pulse that has been animating you since before you were born. You start noticing synchronicities, not just as cute coincidences, but as signals. Reality begins to respond to you because you are no longer asleep in it. You're participating with it. You may feel called to spend more time in nature, not as escape, but as remembrance. Trees become teachers. Rivers become metaphors. The wind becomes a messenger. These are not romantic projections. They are real perceptions that emerge when your consciousness is no longer confined by conditioning. The forgotten word acts like a tuning fork. It aligns your nervous system with the original blueprint of being. And in this alignment, intuition sharpens, vision clears, time softens. You no longer chase meaning, you carry it. Some experience this shift through creative expression. Music, painting, writing, even cooking. These become conduits for the word to flow through you. You find that you're not creating so much as revealing, uncovering what has always existed in the silence beneath noise. The forgotten word moves through the fingertips, the breath, the voice, not as performance, but as presence. Relationships begin to shift. The forgotten word acts like a light shining through your interactions. You begin to see others not as roles or personalities, but as fragments of the same infinite source trying to remember itself. Compassion stops being a virtue and becomes a reflex. Forgiveness stops being difficult and becomes obvious. And conflict, though it may still arise, no longer pulls you into the drama. It invites you into depth. Even the body changes under the influence of remembrance. You feel when energy is stuck. You sense which foods nourish not just the form, but the frequency. You start listening, not just to your body, but through it. It becomes not just a vessel, but a voice, a living temple that holds the resonance of the word. And perhaps most practically, and most mystically, you begin to trust life, not blindly, but boldly. You trust not because everything is explained, but because you have remembered the feeling of truth. You trust not because nothing goes wrong, but because you have touched the part of yourself that nothing can destroy. The part that existed before form and will continue long after it. This is the power of the forgotten word, not to escape the world, but to awaken within it. It gives you new eyes. It gives you new silence. It gives you a depth of experience that can no longer be flattened by culture, by fear, or by the endless chase for more. You do not become superhuman. You become fully human. And in that fullness, the dimensions open, not as alternate realities to escape into, but as layers of richness that have always been present, waiting for you to remember. There comes a moment, not always loud, not always sudden, when the journey inward circles back to the beginning, and what once appeared mysterious begins to shimmer with a kind of clarity that is not made of knowledge, but of recognition. It is the moment when the seeker stops seeking, not because the answers have all been found, but because the questions themselves begin to dissolve. The horizon that seemed distant now reveals itself to have always been within. And it is here, in this luminous stillness, that the forgotten word begins to speak. But it does not speak like language. It does not arrive in syllables or sentences. It emerges as a field, a vibration, a frequency that resonates with every part of you that is real and untouched. You don't hear it, you become it. Or perhaps more accurately, you remember that you already are it. The forgotten word is not a single sound, but the living essence of truth itself. It does not demand belief. It invites experience. It does not require obedience. It offers remembrance. And when you allow yourself to open, not just intellectually, but vibrationally, you discover something that has always been true. You are not separate from the Word. You are the Word made manifest. You were spoken into this world by the unnameable intelligence that sings galaxies into being. Your life is not a coincidence. It is a continuation of a message sent through eternity, echoing through star fields, wombs, and whispers. The forgotten word is your echo returning home. But what now? What does one do with a remembrance so profound? The answer is as simple as it is sacred. You live it. You breathe as if every breath is a hymn. You speak as though every word is a spell. You walk through this world as one who is awake in a dream, not to manipulate the dream, but to illuminate it. You let the word shape your actions, not by instruction, but by inspiration. You let its frequency guide you like a compass made of light, even when the road ahead looks unclear. Because the truth is, once the word has awakened within you, nothing is ever quite the same. The illusion may still appear, but it no longer convinces. The chaos may still rage, but it no longer defines. You begin to live with a secret not of hiding, but of deep knowing. A knowing that every moment is sacred, that every being you meet is another face of the same divine source. That every challenge is not an obstacle, but a mirror, reflecting some part of you that wants to come home. This is the true unlocking of hidden dimensions, not through fantasy or escapism, but through depth. Reality does not change because you escape it. It changes because you pierce it. You go deeper until the surface no longer tricks you. And from that depth, you touch the infinite. So now, I invite you, gently, urgently, to stop searching for the word outside of yourself. The time of external seeking has passed. The temples are closing. The scrolls are fading. What remains is your own inner sanctuary, where the word has always been etched, waiting patiently. Let it rise. Let it rearrange you. Let it open your eyes so fully that you never forget again, because this forgotten word was never truly forgotten. It was only waiting for you, for the day you would remember your true name beneath all names, your true voice beneath all noise, your true home within every breath. Now is that time. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Now. Because this moment is the only real gate to eternity, and the word is already knocking from the inside. Open, breathe, remember, become. And as you walk forward from here, know this: the dimensions are not somewhere else. They are layered behind your perception, waiting for your presence to make them visible. You do not need to ascend to reach them. You need only to descend into now, into truth, into the word that has always been you. You are not just in the world. You are speaking it into existence. You are not the echo. You are the origin. Let the word awaken. Let the word be lived. And let this be your beginning.